You ever hear someone say, just stop overthinking and your anxiety will go away? Now, bless their hearts, but that's like telling an old ceiling fan to stop spinning because it's tired. It doesn't work like that. Especially for those of us with 60, 70, 80 years of thoughts built up like an attic full of unsorted boxes. Welcome, dear one, to Buddhist Wisdom for the Elderly, where we don't try to shut the mind down. We just teach it to be less of a drama queen. This video is split into 8 gentle, powerful parts, each revealing a truth we've all bumped into but rarely recognized. And if you watch just one part today, let it be part 5. This is just a thought. That line alone can unhook a lifetime of anxious patterns. It's like discovering your house was never on fire. It just had very dramatic lighting. Stick around. There's medicine in every part of this, made for you. And if it brings you peace, like and subscribe to help us reach our goal of 1,000 kindred souls and keep this channel blooming for our elder community. Now let's begin. The cushion's ready, the tea's warm, and so is the path ahead. Part 1. The one thought that ends the storm. Let me tell you something weird. Your mind? It's like a nightclub at 2 a.m., loud, chaotic, full of characters you didn't invite, and for some reason, you think you're the one throwing the party. Anxiety walks in, unshaven, twitchy, checking its phone every 3 seconds. You try to ask it to leave politely. It orders a triple espresso, and suddenly, you're wide awake, pacing around in your own head like someone just pulled the fire alarm. Anxiety, that old friend. Here's the thing though. You're not crazy. You're just very, very human. You inherited a nervous system that thinks you're still being hunted by saber-toothed tigers. Only now the tiger wears a name tag and works in tech support. But listen, I met a monk once. Let's call him Tenzin because that's a very monkish name. He used to be a merchant, a hot-tempered wheeler-dealer type. Then his shop burned down, his wife left, and he lost everything. Most people would have spiraled, but Tenzin became a monk. Years later, someone asked him, "Do you still worry?" He smiled and said, "Of course I worry. I just don't believe the worries anymore." Boom, that's it. That's the one thought that can destroy anxiety. But let's not spoil the surprise all at once. Let's wander into it like 2 old dogs chasing butterflies. See, most of us live like our thoughts are landlords and we're just paying rent. A thought shows up and says, "You're in danger." And we go, "Yes, sir, right away, sir. Let me raise my blood pressure and cancel all my plans." But what if it's just a thought? What if that fear is just a cloud passing through a sky that never changes? The Buddhists have this beautiful way of describing it. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts arise and dissolve, like waves dancing on the surface of an ocean that never moves. But most of us are so tightly wound around our thoughts that we forget who we really are. We say, "I am anxious," but that's like a clear sky saying, "I am a thunderstorm." No, sweetheart, you're just experiencing a little weather. Here's the kicker. The thought that destroys anxiety is not complicated. It doesn't require a 10-step program or a retreat in the Himalayas. It's just this. This is just a thought. That's it. It's not the voice of God. It's not the truth of the universe. It's just your mind doing jazz hands again. When you can see that, really see it, it's like the volume knob on anxiety just turns down. Not off, but enough for you to hear the birds again. Now don't get me wrong. Even spiritual teachers get anxious. I once had a panic attack on an airplane while holding a mala and reading Rumi. Nobody's immune. But the game changes when you stop trying to fight anxiety, and instead, you learn how to sit down with it, offer it some tea, and say, "All right, friend, what are you here to teach me today?" So before we dive deeper, just breathe. Seriously, try it. A slow inhale, a long exhale. You're not late, you're not broken, you're just remembering how to come home. In the next part, we'll take anxiety apart gently, like opening an old clock, and see what makes it tick. Spoiler, it's not what you think. Part 2. What is anxiety? Really? Let's take a moment to talk about anxiety. Not as a medical diagnosis, not as a problem to fix, but as a strange little house guest who shows up uninvited, rearranges the furniture in your mind, and then asks if you've got oat milk. Anxiety is weird. It shows up dressed like urgency but smells like fear. It tells you there's a problem, even when there isn't one. It's that voice that whispers, "You're not safe," while you're standing in your kitchen making oatmeal. The Buddha had a word for this, dukkha. Most people translate it as suffering, but it's more like life grinding against itself. Like a wheel that's just a little off-center. You're rolling along, but something feels off, wobbly. And here's the cosmic joke. Anxiety isn't your enemy. It's not even your fault. It's your system doing what it was designed to do. Keep you alive. The only problem is, your system still thinks you live in a jungle. It hasn't updated for modern life. It can't tell the difference between a tiger and a missed call from your doctor. The Buddha didn't say get rid of anxiety. He said understand it. Big difference. See, when you start watching anxiety, not fighting it, not judging it, just watching it, you start to see it's not a solid thing. It's more like a dance, a swirl of thoughts, body sensations, and half-formed prophecies about the future. And it all begins with one little idea. Something bad is going to happen. Now, if you're over 60, you've already lived through a few decades of something bad. You've survived heartbreak, tax season, disco, and probably a few surgeries. The anxious voice isn't new, but it still catches us off guard. Why? Because we believe it. In Buddhism, there's this teaching called nama-rupa, name and form. It's how we create our reality. You get a feeling in your chest, a little tightness, and your mind goes, "Oh no, something's wrong." Boom, you've just named the experience and given it form. You've turned a ripple into a monster. But what if you didn't? What if the tightness was just tightness? The thought was just a thought. There's a lovely teaching from the Zen tradition. Don't seek the truth. Just stop cherishing opinions, especially the ones your anxious mind keeps handing out like free samples. Try this next time anxiety shows up. Instead of running, get curious. Say, "Oh, hello, thought. I see you. You're just visiting. You're not my landlord." Let your thoughts come and go like kids running through a park. You don't try to catch them all, do you? The deeper teaching here, and this is where the Buddha and modern psychology shake hands, is this. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. You are the space in which the waves rise and fall. And that space? It's never anxious. It's never afraid. It just is. That's what meditation helps you remember. Not how to get rid of anxiety, but how to sit beside it and realize, oh, you again. All right, sit down, don't touch anything. And from that space, something amazing happens. You stop reacting, you start breathing. And suddenly, you've turned your haunted house into a temple. In part 3, we're going to look at where this all begins. The craving, the clinging, the need to control everything from your schedule to your legacy. And we'll gently start to loosen that grip. But for now, just know this, you're not broken. You're just waking up. And the anxious voice, it's just a voice, not the truth. Part 3, the root of all this fear, craving and clinging. You ever notice how the mind is like a hoarder? It clings, it grabs, it stacks everything in messy little piles labeled mine, me. Don't you dare take this away. We cling to our memories like they're old vinyl records we never play. We cling to our bodies like they're rental cars we forgot we didn't actually own. And boy, do we cling to our stories, especially the ones that make us anxious. There's a word for this in Buddhism, tanha, thirst. But it's not just about wanting a glass of water. It's that gnawing, restless kind of thirst. The one that says, if I could just fix this one thing, then I'd be okay. Sound familiar? If I could just make enough money. If I could just get my blood pressure down. If I could just stop thinking these thoughts. Then I could finally relax. But here's the kicker. Even when we get what we crave, we don't relax. We just move the finish line. That's the mind's job. It's a craving machine. I had a student once, retired engineer, sharp guy. He had a spreadsheet for everything, including his anxiety management system. But he came to me exhausted, eyes baggy with worry. He said, "I just want to feel safe." I looked at him and said, "Safe from what?" He paused, thought about it, then laughed. "I don't even know anymore." That's the nature of upadana, clinging. You cling because you think there's safety and control. But it's like trying to hug a thunderstorm. The tighter you grip, the more it shocks you. In Buddhist teaching, clinging is what turns discomfort into suffering. It's not the back pain, it's the thought that says, "This shouldn't be happening." It's not the loneliness, it's the belief, "I'll always feel this way." We take the raw ingredients of life and bake them into something much heavier than they need to be. Now don't get me wrong, craving isn't evil, it's just confused. It thinks it's protecting you. That's why it shows up in aging as fear of losing independence, fear of being forgotten, fear of not leaving a legacy. But here's the liberating truth. You can't lose what was never yours to keep. Your body, on loan. Your memories, fading. Your status, dust. But your awareness, that's home. That's the part of you that never clings, never craves, never panics. It just is. The Buddha didn't say kill your desires. He said understand them. Let them come up like bubbles in a glass of soda. You don't need to chase them or pop them. Just let them rise and burst on their own. One of my favorite teachings is this: let go or be dragged. Simple. Brutal. Brutal. True. So try it this way. Next time you feel anxious, ask, what am I clinging to right now? Control? Certainty? An identity? Then ask, what happens if I let go just a little? You might feel lighter, or scared, or suddenly want a sandwich. All of it is okay. Just keep watching. The more you let go, the less the mind claws at you. You stop being the anxious one. You become the watcher of the anxiety. And that's where the freedom is. Part 4. This too shall pass. The liberating power of impermanence. Impermanence. Just the word makes some people twitch. You could almost hear the ego saying, wait, what do you mean? Everything changes? Yes, sweetheart. Everything. Your hair, your hips, your bank account, your relationships, your cholesterol levels, your favorite TV shows, even the people you wish would never change, they do too. Sometimes slowly, sometimes overnight. And that truth? It's not a punishment. It's the way out. The Buddha called it anicca, the understanding that all things conditioned are in a constant state of flux. And yet most of our anxiety comes from pretending that isn't true. We build our mental houses on sand and then panic when the tide comes in. We get attached to feelings, roles, routines. We say things like, I'll always be strong, or this should last forever. And when life does what life does, shift, crumble, move on, we freak out. I once had a woman in her 70s tell me, I don't feel like myself anymore. I said, that's okay. Who you were was never permanent anyway. She looked at me like I had handed her a mirror she wasn't sure she wanted. But slowly she began to see. The anxiety wasn't from changing. It was from resisting the change. It's like trying to hold your breath forever because you liked the last inhale so much. Here's the magic. When you stop fighting impermanence, you stop being its victim. You become its student. Imagine this. You're sitting on a bench watching a river flow. That river is life. Thoughts, emotions, people, all drifting by. But if you try to grab the water and keep it, you're left with nothing but wet hands. Most of us spend our lives trying to bottle the river. We cling to a moment of peace, hoping it'll stay, or we dread a moment of fear, certain it'll last forever. And both are illusions. Because everything that arises also passes. That's the liberating part. Your anxiety? It's not eternal. It's a wave. It builds, it peaks, it fades. Your grief? A companion, not a captor. Even your thoughts, the ones that scream like car alarms in the night, fade when you stop feeding them. I like to say, nothing is permanent, not even the thought that tells you it should be. So the next time anxiety shows up like an uninvited relative who talks too much and rearranges your furniture, you can smile and say, ah, You again. Stay as long as you like. I know you'll leave eventually. One of my teachers told me, let your heart break a little every day. That's how the light gets in. Impermanence breaks the illusion of control, but it also opens the door to presence. Because once you know nothing stays, you stop trying to rush through or hold on. You just show up, fully, for this moment, this breath, this sip of tea, this walk with aching knees and a grateful heart, and that is the beginning of peace. Part 5. This is just a thought. Breaking the spell. You ever get caught in a thought so convincing it feels like it rented out space in your chest and started rearranging the furniture? I'm not good enough. What if something bad happens? Everyone's gonna find out I have no idea what I'm doing. The mind, God bless it, is like a 24-hour drama network with no commercial breaks. And anxiety? It's the headline act. It spins up a thought, adds a little emotion, throws in some heart palpitations, and suddenly, bam, you're starring in a one-person soap opera called The World is Ending, and it's definitely my fault. But here's the liberating truth, and lean in, because this one's good. Ready? It's just a thought. That's it. No fireworks, no sacred chant, no Himalayan revelation. Just that one quiet realization. This is just a thought. And a thought isn't a prophecy, it's not a command, it's not reality. It's just a mental blip, a little cloud floating across the vast sky of your awareness. I once had a moment, I was sitting in meditation, feeling this gnawing pit in my stomach. My mind kept saying, something's wrong, something's wrong. I started spiraling. Then a voice inside me, not loud but steady, whispered, you're just caught in a thought. And poof, the spell broke. I didn't stop feeling, but I stopped believing. That's the key. You don't have to stop the thoughts. You just stop giving them your passport and letting them cross the border into your identity. There's a wonderful teaching in Buddhism that thoughts are like visitors. The ones you invite to tea can stay a while, but you don't have to feed the ones that barge in yelling. Ram Dass would have said, invite them in, sure, but don't give them the keys to the car. When you learn to see thoughts as just thoughts, anxiety starts losing its grip. You stop being the actor and start being the audience, watching the show instead of playing every part. So next time your mind throws a tantrum, you're going to fail, nobody loves you, you'll always feel this way, just smile gently and say, ah, a thought. Label it like a cloud. Oh, there's fear. There's worry. There's my brain doing its usual Tuesday routine. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful, because now you're rooted in awareness, not reactivity. Elderly folks I've worked with often tell me their minds get busier as they age. Regrets, fears about the future, thoughts of illness or dying alone. But when they learn to see those thoughts as just passing events, not truths, their whole emotional landscape changes. It's not about erasing thoughts. It's about learning not to be bullied by them. You are not the thought. You are the awareness the thought is dancing through. The sky doesn't fear the storm, it just lets it pass. So try it now. Close your eyes, take a breath, and when the next thought pops up, because it will, just whisper, that's a thought. Not my thought, not true, just thought. A thought, and then let it float on by. Part 6, meditation isn't about clearing the mind, it's about watching the show. So let's clear something up right now. Meditation is not about becoming a quiet, blissful being floating 3 feet above the ground with zero thoughts and perfect posture. If that's what you're going for, you might be aiming for a statue, not enlightenment. The truth? Meditation is more like going to a weird theater where the same anxious movie plays over and over, and learning how to watch it instead of believe it. You sit down, get still, breathe, and within 3 seconds your mind goes, what's for dinner? Did I leave the stove on? Remember that thing you said in 1983? That was dumb. By the way, you're probably dying. Sound familiar? This is where most people give up. They think, I'm terrible at meditating. My mind won't shut up. But here's the cosmic joke. That's the practice. It's not about having no thoughts. It's about not getting dragged into every single one like it's an emergency. Buddhism teaches us that the mind is like a monkey, swinging from thought to thought, grabbing bananas of judgment, hooting wildly about the future and the past. Meditation doesn't try to stop the monkey. It just teaches you how to stop handing it a microphone. I remember sitting on retreat once, trying to quiet my mind. After a while, I realized my mind had no interest in being quiet. It wanted to talk about snack schedules and past relationships and what color my aura might be. Eventually, I stopped trying to wrestle with it and just sat back like I was watching a late-night rerun of the Mind Channel. Suddenly, it all became funny and gentle and strangely beautiful. That's the shift. You move from being your thoughts to witnessing them. Now in the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha's teaching on the 4 foundations of mindfulness, he doesn't say clear your mind and levitate. He says, be aware of the body in the body, feel the feeling in the feeling, know the mind in the mind, see the nature of phenomena in phenomena. That's a fancy way of saying, watch what's happening without trying to make it different. So how do you do this? Start simple. Find a quiet place. Sit or lie down. Close your eyes. Now just notice your breath. Inhale, exhale. No need to change it. Just feel it. That's your anchor. The breath is the thread that ties you to the present moment. Now here come the thoughts. This is dumb. I'm bored. What's this supposed to do? Great. Label it thinking and come back to the breath. You do this over and over. And that repetition, that's where the magic lives. Not in getting it right, but in coming back. Some days it'll feel spacious. Other days your mind will be a roller coaster on fire. That's okay. You're not meditating to have perfect peace. You're meditating to stop freaking out when peace doesn't show up on schedule. And over time, something shifts. That anxious thought about the doctor's appointment or the rising grocery bill still appears. But it doesn't own you. You see it, you name it, you breathe. And in that pause, there's freedom. Remember, you don't sit to stop the rain. You sit to learn how to stay dry under the umbrella. Part 7. The soft armor of compassion, karuna and metta. Let me tell you a little secret about anxiety. It loves when you're hard on yourself. Anxiety is like that mean gym coach from middle school who yells, "You're not doing enough. You should be better, faster, quieter." Except now that coach lives inside your own head. And we believe him. We think that if we could just fix ourselves, upgrade our mental software, install some new spiritual app, then we'd finally be calm. But the truth is, anxiety doesn't need more discipline. It needs more kindness. It needs a warm hand on the chest and a voice that says, "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now." That's what compassion is. In Buddhism, it's called karuna, the ability to feel the suffering of yourself or another and meet it with care. Not with a problem-solving mindset, not with a checklist, with presence, with love. Most of us are pretty good at compassion for other people. We'll sit with a grieving friend, bring soup to the sick, call our neighbor when their dog runs off. But when it comes to ourselves, we're merciless. You ever notice that? When anxiety shows up, the first thing we do is beat ourselves up for being anxious. Why can't I handle this better? Other people don't fall apart like this. I should be stronger by now. Should. That word is the anxiety anthem. But what if you dropped the should? What if you treated yourself like someone you actually liked? I once spoke to a man in his 80s who'd carried anxiety life, military service, family losses, you name it. And he told me, I used to think I had to conquer it. But it wasn't until I started loving the scared parts of myself that anything actually changed. Loving the scared parts. Now that's wisdom. Because those parts, the trembling heart, the shallow breath, the spinning thoughts, they're not enemies. They're just parts of you trying their best to keep you safe. Even if their methods are a little outdated. That's where metta comes in. Loving kindness meditation. It's the practice of offering phrases of goodwill to yourself and others, like, May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be free from fear. May I accept myself just as I am. Simple, right? But try saying that to yourself on a day when your chest is tight and your brain is running amok. It feels awkward, like giving a hug to a porcupine, but keep going. That's the practice. Loving yourself even when it doesn't feel natural. Because over time, something tender opens. You start realizing that you're not a problem to be fixed. You're a being in need of care. And that's what turns anxiety into a doorway. Not a curse, but an invitation to meet yourself with open arms. So here's your homework. If you're into that kind of thing, next time anxiety shows up, say something kind to yourself, out loud if you can. I'm doing the best I can. It's okay to feel this way. I am still worthy of peace. And notice how even a sliver of compassion softens the whole inner landscape. Part 8. How to live peacefully with anxiety, not against it. At some point, if you're lucky, you stop trying to win the war. You stop trying to overcome anxiety like it's a dragon to slay. You stop yelling at your mind to be quiet. You even stop hoping that someday, somehow, you'll be free of all the noise. Instead, you turn around, look anxiety in the eye and say, "All right, you can walk with me. Just don't drive." That's what peace looks like. Not perfect stillness, not eternal calm. Just a relationship with your fear that's no longer built on fear. There's a teaching in Buddhism called the guest house. Think of your mind as a little cottage by the road. Every morning, new visitors show up. Joy, sadness, loneliness, gratitude, anxiety. Some stay for tea, some trash the place and leave. Your job is not to keep the house empty. Your job is to open the door and say, "Welcome. Even if you tear up the rugs, I'll still be here." I remember a woman in her late 60s telling me she used to dread nighttime. That's when her anxiety would come out to play. Thoughts about death, her children, regrets, unsolved puzzles from a lifetime of being human. Then she started a practice of lighting a candle before bed and whispering to her anxiety, "You can sit with me, but you don't get to narrate the story." And suddenly everything changed. She stopped fighting. She started listening. And strangely enough, the anxiety softened. Like a dog that stops barking once you look it in the eyes. That's the magic of non-resistance. It's not surrender in the weak sense. It's surrender in the powerful spiritual sense, the kind where you stop wrestling with the moment and start blessing it. So how do we actually live peacefully with anxiety? We remember that it's not personal. We remember that it's not permanent. We remember that we are not our thoughts. We are the sky they float through. And we keep returning to that sacred space inside that can watch the storm without becoming it. Meditation helps. Compassion helps. Community helps. But mostly it's about practice. It's about showing up, breath after breath, day after day, and saying, "I'm here. I'm okay. This too belongs." Even if the mind is noisy, even if the chest is tight, even if your to-do list is unfinished and your knees ache and your fears are doing the cha-cha in your head, you can still sit down, you can still breathe, you can still love yourself right in the middle of the mess. Because peace isn't a destination. It's a way of meeting the moment, just as it is, with tenderness and trust. And you, my friend, are entirely capable of that. So the next time anxiety knocks, invite it in like an old familiar guest. Offer it tea. Listen for a moment, and then return gently with a half smile to your breath, to your body, to your beautiful, untouchable awareness. You've done enough. You've always been enough. Now, just be here. So here we are, you made it. You sat with the storm, you watched your thoughts do their little dance, and maybe, just maybe, you stopped believing every single one of them. Let's remember the gem we uncovered in part 5. This is just a thought, not a life sentence, not a warning siren, just a cloud passing through the sky of your awareness. Throughout these 8 parts, we didn't try to escape anxiety. We learned how to sit with it, to breathe through it, to offer it a cup of tea instead of a wrestling match. And that, my friend, is real spiritual progress. If something here touched your heart, or made you chuckle, or helped you breathe a little easier, go ahead. Like this video, share it with a fellow elder, and leave us a comment about what part landed with you most. It helps us grow this little Sangha and reach our goal of 1,000 mindful subscribers. Because we'd love to keep making these gentle Dharma offerings, one breath, one teaching, one kind smile at a time. So until next time, stay curious, stay soft, and may your thoughts knock quietly before entering. The sky's still here, and so are you.